And good morning. Welcome to your wake up call. My name is Marc Caron. I'm coming to you here live from Vancouver, British Columbia. It's 9 a.m. in the morning, and I figured what a great way to start the week with your wake up call. And wherever you may be watching, I welcome you, PMC Global Community Conscious Living Network, and anybody who might be watching anywhere in the world today. Thank you for joining us. Again, my name is Marc Caron. And today we're going to be talking about values and beliefs. Who are you and how our values and beliefs shape our lives? So this is the topic of the day. And we're going to get into really what our values and beliefs are. And we're going to talk about our conscious choice around values and beliefs, or probably for many of us, our unconscious choice regarding our values and beliefs. Now, for those people who joined me last week, we spoke about, kind of why we do what we do. And we talked about our, as human beings, where we are, driven by pain to avoid pain and to gain pleasure. And that we have top two fears, fears that we're not enough and that we won't be loved. And then we also talked about our 6 human needs: our need for certainty, our need for variety, significance, feeling that we're important, also our need for connection and love, which are the first 4 being the needs of the personality. And then we have needs 5 and 6, which are growth and contribution. This is something that I learned in the Tony Robbins world, which is a very, something that's been very important to me in terms of my learning, growth, and development, the tools that I use to help people change their lives. So today, I want to talk to you about our values and belief systems, because they really form and shape everything that we do. Now, before we get started, anybody who's watching out there, please let me know where you're from. Say hello in the comments. And if you have any questions as we move forward in what I'm sharing in the next hour, I please invite you to ask them, because I'd love to answer your questions, especially as they come up. Because I think it's really important to be interactive as much as we can when, sharing some of these tools. So let's really get started. First, a wake-up call. What's that really about? Well, the wake-up call, I think, is just time for us to all wake up. Today, we're talking about, we're in a very interesting time in society and the world, where people are talking about, the Great Awakening, and there's a mass awakening happening with people. And, a big part of our awakening is, waking up or realizing the truth of what's happening, not just in the world today, but in our lives, and why it is we do what we do, why we believe what we believe, why we value what we value. And again, are we choosing our values and beliefs consciously, or are they just something that we've adopted over time? And this is something that we spoke about in the first episode of your wake-up call, when we just talk about consciousness at its core is an awareness. And are we aware of what we value and what we believe? So first off, when I say value, what do we value? What is a value? Well, a value is simply an emotional state of which we really wish to live in, or what we choose to feel. Because everything we do as human beings is to, have a feeling, right? So if we value cars, or, a fancy car, what's the feeling that that'll give you? If you value love, what does that mean? What's the feeling you're going to get by feeling loved? And, yes, of course, love is the feeling, but what does that really mean, and why is it that we want it? What about valuing relationships or success? These are all different values, but then what is success, right? Again, success is really a feeling of achievement, feeling good that you've completed something in a good way. Some people may measure success simply as how much money they earn. They could measure success by, the relationships that they're in. They could measure success just in terms of their physical fitness, right? So again, when we talk about values, what is it you value? What emotional state, what feeling are you looking for to be in most of your life? And are you choosing that consciously? right? Some people may value peace and harmony, yet their life isn't harmonious and peaceful, right? So why is that? Even though that becomes a value. And then, we talk about beliefs. What are beliefs? Well, a belief is just a certainty that something is true, and that's what's really true for you. So, if you believe something to be true, right? And I know I'm using belief to define, or believe to define belief, but it's a certainty. It's that knowingness that what is happening is true for you. Have you ever been in a situation where people will look at the same situation and have a different belief and then a different meaning? Because remember when we talked last week about or a couple of weeks ago about the three molders and the three ways to change, we talk about language and meaning. And our language and meaning is very key, because we can share again the same event, give it a completely different meaning, which often comes from belief systems or even experience. We'll have a belief around an experience that will form and shape our life, and then will also influence our behavior and how we show up in the world. Now, in the spirit of PMC Global and what we stand for, I think a belief system in regards to even just a plant-based diet, again, that's a belief system, and it's also part of our values, because they're related. Our values and beliefs are definitely related. So let's just talk briefly as an example about plant-based diet and living a healthy lifestyle. So can you believe, are there people out there who believe that the only way to a healthy, vibrant lifestyle is through a plant-based diet? Absolutely. There's many people. I'm one of those people who do believe that. And then some people will be, a vegan, and they'll believe that they don't want any animal products in their diet. And then we have carnivores and omnivores and people who eat meat. And, do they necessarily believe that's healthy for them? I know a lot of people who are fit, healthy, they exercise regularly, and they still eat a lot of meat, because they have a different belief system. They believe that they need that protein, that they need that, warrior energy or whatever that might be for them, because it's a belief system. Now, we can take a look at, being vegetarian versus vegan, right? So vegetarian people have a belief system that, for whatever reason, they're vegetarian. For me, I just learned a whole bunch about meat, and how animals are farmed and processed for all of that. So this is a belief system, and it's not something I wanted to put into my body. The fear, the anxiety, the hormones, all the different things that they put into meat is something that I didn't want to actually put into my body when I started becoming more conscious or more aware of the effects that has. Now, it evolved for me as well, as I learned on my spiritual journey, about just the killing of animals. And, when I spoke with Patricia a few weeks back, we had a conversation because, with what's going on in the world today, we have, the Black Lives Matter movement. And then we were talking about how all lives matter. And then we talked about how all life matters. And again, these are all belief systems, and we will act and behave accordingly to what it is we believe, or that we have certainty is true. So a vegan, of course, they don't want any animal products, and it's all plant-based, because they have a belief system that, in regards to animal products, cheese and things of that nature, eggs and what have you. So, that's just one spectrum. If we talk about our health and nutrition, of how we can have different belief systems, still and still believe or have a certainty that we're healthy and fit because we exercise, but we all have different, rules and beliefs in terms of what we're going to put into our body and how we're going to achieve that. So what's right or what's wrong? I don't believe anything is right or wrong necessarily, because it depends on your beliefs. My belief in regards to, this subject matter alone in health and wellness. I'm vegetarian, mostly vegan, and I told you why I generally don't eat meat, and that's a belief system. And I value health and nutrition and, putting good things into my body. So for me, that's really important. And so that's an example of a belief. You can have another belief system. Maybe you like dogs, or maybe you don't like dogs. Now, why is that? You may have had a bad experience with a dog when you were younger and might have bit you or scratched you or something. Who knows what that is? Or maybe they smell funny, and, that becomes a belief again. We believe that maybe then all dogs are dangerous or dogs are not good. And we will make a belief, a global belief is what we would call that, because we would look at all dogs as dangerous. Now, let's say you got bit by, a big dog versus a small dog, and you like small dogs, but you don't like big dogs, because you would have a belief based on a pain-based situation that big dogs are bad or dangerous, yet small dogs are safe. And trust me, I know some small dogs that are vicious, but I think it's interesting because this is the difference of how we can have beliefs and they break up in different ways because we have rules to verify our beliefs. Now let's switch to values, back to values again, because our beliefs and our values are very much interrelated. And one of our most powerful values and belief systems is our identity belief. And that's why I titled the show today, Who Are You? Who are you? Have you ever been asked that question before? And you might say, hey, I am Mark, or I am Madhya, or I am a man, I am Canadian, I'm a human being. These all become identity beliefs, right? I may believe myself to be successful, while someone else may not deem me to be successful, because we would have different rules of how we define success. And the most interesting thing that I want to share with you is when you start discovering and asking yourself, who am I? Who am I really? What do I value? What do I believe? These become some great insights into who we are in our personal growth and development. Because for many of us, and I know I can speak for myself specifically, I grew up, believing, in the Roman Catholic Church. I grew up believing I had to get good grades in school. I grew up believing that all people are good. I believed, grew up, in terms of even trust. I looked at trust, and I trust everybody until there's no reason to trust them. Yet, on the same terms, it's a belief. And then there's some people who don't trust anybody until they have a reason to trust, right? So there's many of these things that happen, when we adopt these beliefs and these value systems. A lot of it comes from our upbringing, from our parents, it could be our religion, or going to church, our school, the country we live in, the nationality that we are, even the color of our skin these days. We have, beliefs around that. And these will form our lives because it becomes our identity. When we believe that we are successful, we'll actually behave and act and show up in a more successful way. If we believe we are depressed, we will show up as being depressed, right? Our body language, our words, the way we breathe, our physiology, it all changes, because we will always work and strive to behave in a way that is in alignment with who we believe we are. And that's why I ask you, who are you? Who are you? Who am I? I'm Mark. The purpose of my life is to be an inspiration to others while living a life of growth and contribution and enjoying the process. That's my fundamental belief of who I am. I'm a human being in this bio suit, as my friend Christina Schwinn would refer to it, who I met at Cosmic Reset with Pari and the gang from PMC Global. But I also believe that I am spirit having a human experience. So what does that mean? Well, it means that I'm going to show up very differently than someone who believes they're just a human being, right? They're not spirit. They're just a body doing a thing, and when it's over, right? You're going to have a very different belief system. Let's take a look at, just religions around the world. If you're Catholic, you believe in what Catholicism teaches, or Christianity, right? If you're Muslim, you'll have a different belief system around spirituality. If you're Hindu or Sikh, you're going to have different, belief systems, and also different values, and how you're going to show up and behave and be in the world. So again, I ask the question, who are you? Are you a lover or are you a fighter, right? Some people believe that, anger is a good thing, and people will always show up because they want love to be the answer to everything, which I believe love is always, such an important thing. So that's our identity beliefs. And when we look at who we are, we can actually consciously choose, when we start becoming more aware, because remember, consciousness is awareness at its core, of what we value. And what's interesting about our values is they also come in somewhat what we would call a hierarchy. So we rank different values differently. So I might value love, success, health, fitness, relationships, right? So there's just a few. What do I value most? What do you value most? Do you value success and money? Is success even money for you? Because again, remember, these become the rules that actually, determine how we show up in regards to our belief systems, which meet our values. So what does that really mean? Well, let's just talk about success again. Because success is such a prominent, especially here in the West, in North America and Canada and the United States and things where I live, everything is about being successful and what success means. And for some people, success is really about, maybe they have to make $100,000 a year, $1 million a year, $10 million a year to be successful. They have to have a great job, a beautiful partner, 3 kids, a house, and a 2-car garage, a white picket fence. Maybe these are their rules for success. Now, what about, the person whose rules of success is really, really simple, where they would say, hey, I'm successful every day I wake up and my feet hit the ground. Imagine how life would be different. Because if you're that person who needs to make, $cajillion a year and have all these things, which, right, is your rules and your measurement for success, and let's say you don't have all of that, or you don't have one of those things, you may not consider yourself successful, which will change how you feel, what you believe, and how you show up. You might work harder. You might be hard on yourself. Your partner might, be saying, hey, you're not doing all these things you said you were going to do or that you wanted. And so it will be hard to achieve success. Where the person who just has to roll out of bed, have their feet hit the ground, their day starts off with success. Imagine the difference of your life if you set up your rules for what you value to be actually very easy to achieve. Because people will have a really interesting set of rules to define whether their values are being met. One is love, right? How do you know you're loved? Well, you might be married and kids for the people who are out there. For example, let's say you're in a relationship, and in order to feel love, you get up every morning, and your lunch has to be waiting for you, your breakfast has to be ready, your wife has to kiss you goodbye, or your partner, whatever that might be for you, they have to kiss you goodbye, or Your kids have to hug you before you leave. Let's say you had 10 things that had to happen every morning before you left the house to feel love. Love is now going to be a much harder emotion and value to experience because you had so many things. Like baking a cake, it's a recipe. What's your recipe for love? What's your recipe for success? What's your recipe for health and fitness? And everybody's recipe can be different. And that's the beauty of being human, versus baking a cake. If you have a recipe for a cake and you miss one ingredient, your cake's not going to be the same. If you put it in the oven at the wrong temperature, again, your cake's not going to be the same. If you put too much or too little of something, your cake's not going to be the same. It's not going to bake. It's not going to be what you expected it to be. So that's just one example of how you can take a look at the difference of the recipe of how we meet our values. So let's go back to the example I was talking about, love, and love is a very interesting example, especially the one I laid out, because all of a sudden you've got these multiple rules for feeling love before you even leave the house in the morning. And what if you were to make it so that love was really easy to achieve? What if you felt love every time your partner looked at you, smiled? What if you felt love just because your kids were like, hey mom, hey dad, they were just there? What if it was that easy? So now all of a sudden only one thing has to happen in order for you to feel loved. Yet we don't consciously choose these rules because we grow up in different lives, in different situations, in different circumstances. So based on our experiences, we make unconscious connections in terms of what love looks like. And this comes down to, we see this in relationships all the time where people have different love languages. They have different rules and values and beliefs in terms of how to achieve that feeling of love. Because remember, values are really just a feeling that we desire to have most. And you can have values, things that you don't value and things that you do value, which is perfectly okay. And, when we start taking a look at our values in that way, we have the opportunity to change our lives. And so many of us, especially in the West, I can't speak for other people in other parts of the world necessarily because your experiences and cultures are different. However, we've put, a whole lot of pressure in terms of, imposing what our society values versus what we personally value, that we consciously choose. And that's the thing I really want to make sure that I can drive home for you to understand, because I really want people to wake up to the fact that we have the ability to change our lives in any moment, to think differently, to change differently, to change our values and our rules so that we can really live a more fulfilled life. Because again, think of that person who wanted, all of that money to make a year, and that their house had to be, the certain way, and they had to have a certain amount of, because now all of a sudden, if you don't have that, you're not going to be happy, right? You're not going to feel loved. You're not going to feel successful. You're not going to have all of these things together. So you'll never feel what you value the most. So think about, think about what it is you value again, right? And what do you value most? Again, we talked about the hierarchy. Do you value love more than success? Success might be at the very bottom of your list. And love, relationships, health, fitness, these can all trump success. Yet they could all be related to success, because if you have love, relationships, health and fitness, for some people, well, that would just be a successful life. I consider myself successful because, I live my life every day based on what I want to do. And, I really appreciate life. So I have really simple rules for success. And that's being here with you, to me, is success. That was easy. I got up this morning, my feet hit the ground. Success. we're here having this conversation. Success. I'm not going to put success necessarily based on how much money I earn, even though I do have, a desire of what that might be. Yet it's not how I define who I am, which comes back to our identity. Who are you? The most driving force of our human psychology is our identity belief, because we will show up who we believe we are. And that's something that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago when we spoke about, people who are, are lovers and love everybody and have big hearts. Wherever they go, they're smiling, they're warm. It's who they are. It's how you show up. That's your identity. That's who you believe you are. If you believe you're a helper and you're here to be of service, wherever you go, you're going to want to help people. You're going to want to be of service. You're going to want to make a difference. If you believe that you're, a strong business tycoon and love seeing ideas and making things happen, you're going to look at everything and everywhere you go, you're going to be looking for the opportunities, right? So these are just, again, some more examples of how we show up. People who, believe anger is a good thing, they're going to use anger a lot. I met a guy one time I was working with, and I was like, man, hey, you're like angry a lot, and I'm thinking, anger? He goes, why are you so hurt? Why are you so angry all the time? And he was like, because anger gives me power and strength and makes things happen. And I was just like, oh my God, because I don't like to go into anger. Very, very rarely in my life do I get really angry anymore. But this guy, it made me stop and think, because I had my own belief system around anger, where I believe anger comes from hurt, which, often does, because things aren't the way that we like them. So we're hurt by them. And so we get angry to defend ourselves or whatever that is. And that's my belief system. So here's this guy, and he was successful. He had a good job. He, was successful in many things that he did. But anger he used as a tool. Why? Because he had a different belief system. He had different experiences that conditioned that in him, where anger was the way he got things done. It's the way he made things happen, because it gave him, a power and a motivation. So here's a guy who valued anger as a tool to create stuff. Now, the vibrational energy to anger, it can be debated that, it's a lower vibration than love, acceptance, peace, and compassion to create change. Yet, this was just this gentleman's belief. And I have a different belief system. But I share it again, so just to show the differences of how we will value a certain emotional state, such as anger or love, to create change. And whether you believe something's true or whether it isn't, it's going to be true to you, because that's the power of belief. Have you ever believed something so powerfully and then discovered you're wrong? I know I have. I've dug in my heels sometimes. It's like, no, this is the way it is. This is how it works. I know. It was my belief. I had such a level of certainty. And then I found out I was mistaken, right? And for me, mistake is a good thing, because I have a belief around mistakes as well. Mistake, that's just a learning opportunity. That's my belief, And some people will be like, oh my God, they made a mistake. And then they'll go into that not good enough, won't be loved, right? So again, it's one of those things where, what does it mean to you? And as we make meaning and as we have beliefs, our beliefs will, and our values will really rule our lives. So again, I ask you, who are you? And if you have some questions wherever you're watching in the world today, please put them in the live comments here, because I'd be happy to answer any questions and have any dialogue with you in regards to what we're doing. But yeah, it's I'd love to answer your questions if you've got any. So now let's take a look at beliefs again. Take a look at some of these successful people who achieve many, many great things. They have a belief system that they can. What if you had a belief system that you can do anything you wanted to, and be successful at it? How would your life be different versus something you said, oh no, I can't do that. I'm too old. I don't have the education. I'm not smart enough. I'm not tall enough. I don't live in the right city or town or country or continent in the world. What if you had a belief system that actually took away that personal power that we all have to create exactly that of what we want? And again, this gets into our language and our meaning and the stories and the words that we use to create our own reality. Because our words are our creation of everything, right? Words create our vocabulary, how we use our words, how we use our language, definitely creates our life, our experience, and our emotion, which is our values. Values are simply an emotion of what we want to feel the most. So, back to beliefs. What if you believed you could do anything you wanted to do? Create anything your mind can perceive. Truth is, it can achieve. It's all about that power of belief and not letting the doubt sneak into our minds, because it will take away the power of our belief. Have you ever believed you could do it and you could make a difference? And maybe some of your friends or family said, no, you can't do it. You'd never achieve that. And have you ever listened to them and not achieved what it is you want to achieve? Because here's two people again. They have different belief systems where this person believed, no way, that's pie in the sky dreaming. You'll never make it happen. And because their belief might be, you don't have enough money, you don't have the education, or whatever that is. And maybe your belief is, I can do anything I want. I can achieve anything if I'm committed to finding the way. And I have a belief that is really that simple. Anything I can perceive, I can achieve. That's one. And as long as I'm committed, there is always a way. Just like we get to mistakes. There's no mistakes. Mistakes are just learning opportunities, right? That's a belief. Problems. They're just solutions waiting to happen. It's another belief. And when we have belief systems that empower us, we are going to be much more resourceful when we're taking action. And this is something that I think is really important, because so often we get discouraged, sometimes by the people around us, because of the different values and beliefs. What if you had a value, and a belief system that you just accepted what everybody had to say and you listened, however, you didn't believe it, right? Because experience is being the best teacher. What if you actually went out and tested it and to see if that actually belief works for you? You can try it on and you can see the difference in your life. What if you're to believe, all of a sudden you're watching today, and we go back to the, health, nutrition, physical vitality and things. And we talked about, being a meat eater versus vegetarian, being vegan. How would you really know? You could have a belief system that you have to eat meat, yet the biggest, strongest mammals in the world are vegetarian, right? You can take a look at an elephant and a bunch of whales and blue whales. Mind you can debate, I guess, a blue whale or some of those whales, because they'll eat, different, krill or whatever that might be. But take a look at some of the biggest mammals in the world and the strongest mammals in the world. They're vegetarian. They eat plant-based diets. So that's something to consider. Yet, now, what if you're, a meat eater and believed in that, and you actually tested, you became vegetarian for 30 days? That would be an experience, right? Have you ever been vegetarian for 30 days, or have you always eaten meat? Do you eat meat 3 times a day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Or do you only eat it once a week, once a day, right? So it's about testing what works for you and knowing what the results are. Same as exercise, different exercises will give you different results in a different way. Same as eating differently will give you different results, will make you feel differently, will have an effect on your body, your energy, and your biochemistry. And remember, we talked about, our biochemistry at the base of all of our humanness in this biosuit, in this human body, is one of the most important aspects of our life. What we put into our body, how we breathe, how we move, all controls how we feel, right? And which comes down to being related to our values. If you value physical vitality, your biochemistry, you're not going to be polluting yourself with things that you don't value as much, right? Or sorry, you won't be polluting yourself with things that will actually take you down a notch, or reduce your energy, plug your mind, or cloud your thinking. So our biochemistry and our physiology is always key. And again, I always suggest the best teacher is experience. So test out some of these things and adopt a different belief system. What if you're to believe that everybody loves you and you love everyone? You're going to have a different life. Now one of the values that comes up a lot in personal development world and some of the programs that I've taken is really about integrity as well. What do you value? Integrity. Some people are really, really integral. They do exactly what they say, when they're going to do it, how they're going to do it, and you can always rely on them, right? So that's integrity, basically honoring your word. Now, what about those people who don't value integrity and they'll say whatever they want to say just to please people? What's going to happen to the people, example, is being on time? If you say you're going to be somewhere at 4 o'clock, do you show up at 4 o'clock? Do you show up at 5 to 4? Do you show up at 5 after 4? Sometimes we're late. It happens, and that's just part of life. Now, are you habitually late? I know some people who they're never on time. Never. Right? They'll always say, oh yeah, I'll be early this time. I'll be on time. And they're still late, right? Because they don't value being punctual. Now, me, on the other hand, if I'm not early, I'm late. And if I'm late, people usually wonder what's going on or where I am or what's happening, because I'm always early, right? So integrity is really an interesting aspect. And we come down to, again, I think being on time is always a great example, because then I know people, as I was saying, that I've got some friends, they're just never on time. However, here's what happens. So I now create a belief system around how these people are showing up. It becomes their identity. I make a belief around somebody else's identity, which can be really quite interesting, right? Because now that person who's always late, as soon as they say they'll be here at 4 o'clock, I'm not expecting them till 4:15, because they're always late. I might not even be expecting them till 4:30, depending on their pattern. Because again, remember, I talked about everything's a pattern. This was, I think, the first episode of your wake-up call. Because I want everybody to wake up. There's a pattern to our behavior, which is related to our identity, who we believe we are, how we show up, what we value, what we believe. And we need to wake up to choosing who we are consciously. Because there's times that, I know who I am, or I believe who I am. I have my identity belief. And then I'll show up in a situation that I'm not showing up as that loving, compassionate, caring kind of guy. I'm almost like a bull in a china shop. Why is that? Because all of a sudden I have a different value and belief systems in place. All of a sudden I'm not being this loving guy because something has trumped that loving, caring, compassionate, empathetic place, where it might have been anger, it might have been hurt, it might have been disappointment. It could have been anything, because now that becomes also my rules and beliefs. So somebody did this. So because they said that one thing, let's say they were late, for example, now I don't value that. I could make the meaning say, they don't value my time, right? And that's a fair statement. We can say they don't value their time. Again, this becomes a belief. And then we set up our rules, because now I'm changing my time in my head, because I know they're not going to be on time. And for me, that's just a really simple example of how we can, really shift from being one part of who we say we are to being not congruent with who we are. It's part of the human condition, and that's okay because we are emotional creatures, right? We are driven by the feelings that we want to feel and what we value. What feelings do you value? Who are you? What feeling do you want to feel the most in your life every day, all the time? Right? What's that feeling? Is it about success, knowing you're financially secure? Is it about feeling physically fit? Is it about love? Is it about relationships? And these are most of our primary, you know, values that most people do value. But yet we need to really start being consciously aware and wake up to how we're showing up, how we're acting, behaving, and conversing with people. Because, again, we don't consciously choose our values and beliefs and our rules. Because our rules, man, they could be a spider web of things where that recipe to bake that cake, as I was talking about, let's say that cake is love. It's a love cake. If you've got too many rules for feeling love, love is going to be really hard for you to feel versus having really simple rules, right? You know, what if you just realize, I am love, right? Love is the answer. We're all love. That's what we all want. So we give love, man. Love can be a really easy thing to do and be if that's our focus. Yet so many of us find love to be scary because it hurts, because it's the one thing we want the most. It's the one thing we fear losing the most. It's one thing we all value the most, right? Because love is the answer. Love is all you need, as the Beatles would say. Yet, are you loving? Do you show love? How do you know someone loves you? And these are the rules, right? If someone just shows up and gives you a phone call, you could call that love. But if someone has to, show up at your door with a bouquet of flowers and dinner and, tell you all the sweet things about you, and they don't do that, it's going to be hard to really feel love, right? And it's okay if that's all the things you want to feel love. Not a problem. Not a problem at all. The most important thing then is to communicate that with your partners and the people so that they know what that is for you. And then they know if they want to meet that or do that. Or as you're sharing that with them, you might actually realize that, hey, that's actually kind of difficult. That's a lot of rule. That's a big recipe for love. You can actually change it. That's the beautiful part of it. You can change your values, what you value at any time you find that what you thought you valued maybe doesn't work for you anymore. So within that, we have the ability to make the change. And these are the things that I love, just about doing the work that I do in terms of just transformation and creating experiences for people, is seeing people change and realizing that they may have been actually doing things in a way, and I don't want to say wrong, but they're doing things in a way that is not helping them, meet their needs and hit those values and those emotional states that they want to be in at any given time, and we talked about happiness, and, if you value happiness, then what are you doing to be happy? What are your rules for being happy, right? Happiness might, again, be related to success. You might have to have so many different things to be happy, or you could just be alive and be happy, which makes it really easy. And it's fun to share that, just being happy for no reason or laughing for no reason. Powerful. It's really powerful to be happy and joyful because we can. And it's a state, it's a choice based on what we're focusing on, the language, meaning, and story that we're having, our rules and our values. And then who are you? Are you a happy person? Or are you a person who's always, having challenges and the world's not going for you? Again, language, meaning, and story. What if we change our language and our meaning and ask a different question? How can I turn this around? How can I feel love? How can I feel success? What do I need to do in order to? And you can fill in the blank, because the questions we ask, again, become some of the most powerful tools that we have for creating transformation. Because whatever question you ask, your mind is going to answer it. Even if you don't say it out loud, it's going to answer it. So always ask yourself an empowering question that leads you to answers. Questions are huge. So again, when we talk about our values and our identity beliefs, again, I told you right from the beginning, and why we call this, who are you? This title of our program today is Who Are You? I want you to really ask the question, and so that you can take a look at your beliefs around who you are. And then I ask you to ask the question, am I living up to that? Am I being, integral and having integrity to myself, so that, you might think you're being, healthy and fit, yet you're not exercising and you're not eating well, but you value health and fitness. Are you going to be happy? I think not, because you're going to have you're not going to be aligned in what you value and the actions that you're taking. So alignment is always important. And when we start looking at things, looking at these processes, it really will shine the light on where we can make improvement. And nothing is bad. Don't ever beat yourself up for something that you think you should be doing that you're not doing. Just do it. Or ask yourself what needs to happen for that to do it. You could ask yourself, why am I not doing it? However, be careful, because why can create some guilt and defensiveness, and you will possibly, I like to ask those questions because I like to know the why, so I can understand myself, because we can't change what we don't acknowledge. The important thing, and what happens with a lot of people, is when they ask why, they just make themselves feel worse about the situation, and then they come into that, age-old, innate, question and problem that we have, is that we're not good enough, right? Well, it's just because I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes. BS. Belief system, right? That's what BS means. When I say BS, I'm meaning belief systems. And that's all it is, because we've learned somewhere. All of these things are learned, and they all come from, again, our culture, our society. And the one thing I always love to share with you guys, is that awareness. We have the right and the ability to choose. It's what I love about human beingness, is our freedom to choose, our free will. And we can change our mind at any time. And that's okay, because you have to do what's right for you, for who you are, for who you believe you are, right? Have you taken some time to really think about who you are, right? I like to think of myself as a lover of people, of a seeker of truth, of, I am, force for good. I am, a great friend. I am funny. That's part of my identity. I like to be funny and humorous, right? I like to tell some silly jokes and be playful. I also believe, life is not serious. We're not meant to be serious all the time. I think we need to have some playfulness in our lives. It's not about not achieving and taking care of ourselves. Serious doesn't mean everything has to be right or perfect. All right. So it's really important to have fun and be playful, and take a look at your life. And, happiness is a really easy thing to achieve. And it's really about being okay with where you're at. One of the first steps of leadership that we learn is really to tell yourself the truth, see it as it is, and, not worse than it is, and really then turn around and make it the way you want to see it. That's okay. So many people we see in this world, and deem as successful, have had many challenges, many setbacks, yet they persevere because they know who they are, they know what they want, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to achieve that. Are you? Are you that person who's willing to do what it takes? Are you that person who's willing to, get back to the gym, or start exercising, or eating differently? Who are you showing up as for your family, for your friends, for your community? Are you showing up as a beacon of hope? a beacon of light, as a example of opportunity and beingness and playfulness? Or are you someone who's always kind of down, always looking at the problems, always looking at what's not working, right? And it's okay to look at what's not working, what the problems are, because again, we can't change what we don't acknowledge. Yet, are you living there? Who are you? Are you the kind of person who's making a difference in the world, or are you the kind of person who's just getting by and surviving, right? This becomes our identity belief. It's really a powerful, powerful place to be when we can take a look and really redefine and get to the core of who we are, to our spirit, and know what we stand for, to know what we believe, to know what we want to, how we want to show up in the world to other people, whether we're making a difference, on a global level, a community level, a family level. Who are you? And if anybody has any questions as you're watching out there, please drop them into the comments. I'm happy to ask them. We've got about 8 minutes left on our program, and I'm going to start wrapping it up because we only have 8 minutes left. So again, today we're talking about our values and beliefs, and it's, what do you value? A value is simply an emotional state and a feeling of which we want to really feel more and be in more often than not. It's what we want to feel. It's simply what we value. It's an emotion. And again, even if it's about stuff and achieving things and money and things, all of that stuff, those things, create a feeling in us. And so we value that feeling that those things bring. Okay? And a belief is just a knowing of certainty that something's true for you. It's really quite simple. And our rules that affect our values and beliefs is, how we achieve these things and how we define whether we trust someone, whether there's integrity, whether there's love, whether there's creation, right? Some people can look at the exact same thing, have a completely different meaning, value it completely differently, and yet it's just the one experience, which brings me back to a real simple understanding that changed my life. And that is, nothing has any meaning except the meaning we give it, right? We can look at a situation and give it a meaning, which will be completely different than what the person beside us will see. Because perception is everything. Perception becomes our reality. And that is left up to our own free choice of how we direct our mind, our body, and our spirit. Who we are is how we show up in the world. It's how people even see us. Have you ever thought you were, you were this one person, how you saw yourself, and somebody totally didn't see you that way? Why is that? Right? Two things. Are they having a different set of values, beliefs, and rules of what that means and what they're seeing in you that isn't congruent with who you say you are? Or are you not being congruent and in alignment with who you believe you are? Because remember, our identity belief is basically the most powerful force in our human psychology that determines how we show up in the world. And how we show up in the world makes a difference in how we feel and how other people feel being around us, and how we can actually make a long-term impact on the benefit of humanity. And let's wake up, folks, because right now humanity needs it. Humanity needs us to be beacons of life, to share positive messages, to know that everything's going to be okay. Everything happens for a reason, and that we will get through this. It's amongst some of the most powerful things we can do right now is love and care for each other. We have different beliefs, and a mask is going to help, a mask's not going to help. Love each other anyways. understand, be compassionate. You know, we have to, take a look at everything that's happening in the world and decide how we're going to show up in that. Are you going to live in fear? Are you going to live in opportunity? Are you going to live, in a spirit of helping people? And that's how I look at it. Every opportunity is um, for a learning, for growth, for development. Because if we're not learning and growing, we're dying. We're just remaining stagnant, and our human potential, our happiness, our joy, our bliss, all of these things come from making progress and living life and daring to do things differently. And if you value adventure, you're going to live a whole different life than a person who values certainty and safety. If you value love over money, you're going to have a different life as well. So we can choose our values consciously. We can actually choose our beliefs consciously as well. And it becomes a whole process when we go into looking at what we value, what we believe, identifying the hierarchy, we want to meet, what value we want to feel first and in what order and what's most important. And we can consciously change the rules and the belief systems around how we achieve that. And this is what we call conscious awareness, folks, is really waking up to the fact that we have an opportunity to create the lives we want in every moment of every second of every day by thinking differently, choosing differently, acting differently, eating differently, right? If you want a different result in your life, you must change the things that you are doing habitually every single day, every single moment. And again, everything is a pattern, and most of us run that pattern in the hamster wheel of getting up every day, working 9 to 5, watching the same TV programs, if that's what you do, or if you read or you exercise or whatever that does, there's a pattern, right? So change your pattern. Change. You want something different in your life? Change what you're doing. Change what you're thinking. Change how you're speaking. Work in a spirit of co-creation, collaboration. Work in a spirit of knowing that all things will pass and that this too is a learning experience to make my life and the lives of those around me even better. These are some of my identity beliefs and what I value and how I show up. Even when I get frustrated, because I'm human too, I always come back to what can I learn from this? What can we make different? And that's really what it is. Life is a learning experience. Life is an opportunity. Live the life based on your dreams, your choice, what you want, and choose consciously. You have every right to make the change. You have all the skills, all the ability. Everything is within you, always has been, always will be, and within everybody you know as well. So let's be an inspiration to each other. Let's be an inspiration to those around us. And let's do our best to make this an even better world as these times are changing. Thank you very much for watching. And we'll see you next week, Monday morning. This is Marc Caron signing off for your wake-up call. We'll see you again. Thanks again.